Just for those that are the first time to this, my name is Christopher. I'm the Network Digital Manager. You will get emails from me, which is partner.content@ageuk.org.uk, and you can see all the information I'm talking about on the Digital Hub, and that comes in at the bottom of every email that I send to you. And also let me know that you can see the screen as well, so that you should be able to see my presentation. So what we're going to look and have a quick intro. We're going to talk about the login screen, the social links, the footer, the text form, the text box, and the forms, and any questions that you may have at the end. We'll start with the login screen. So as you will see, I'm having the same issues. This is the new login screen for the EpiServer. So what we will do now is you'll need just to log in normally as you would, but you need to tick this box now. And it asks you to confirm that about third-party embeds. Now you all use third-party embeds on the site, so these things are like Google Docs or Google Maps or Twitter or Facebook, and you put them in. Now we just need to know, we just need you to know that when you put these things in, there may be a risk involved in them that would affect the site or affect the other sites. We're going to come up with some more policy later on, and you should all know this anyway because it's in the brand partner agreement. But it's just we need to have this when you log in, just so you know every time when you log in that you should be using like reputable sources that have been tested. So like the big hitters should ideally be okay, and we're going to come up with a whitelist later on, which will kind of cover all of these things. But then if you kind of get a really like a small third party that you don't know or you've never used before, we'll put something in place in order for you to check that that works out or can be scanned so that it doesn't cause issues. So I will log in. So the first thing we've crossed is the login page, which is obviously that's the situation. Now the next one is the social links. So we have added a new social link, which is for LinkedIn, which some of you might want to use. So you can find this in your site settings. And if you go to share links within your site settings, and there's show Facebook, show Twitter, and we've added another one, which is now show LinkedIn. And so when you set that up, when you then tick it, and it will show it on all other pages, such as a news article. So if I tick that there, and I publish, and then I go to About Us, News, and I've just set up the Christmas campaign here. Now, obviously, at the moment, it will then appear at the bottom because I've had in this news article, I have said display share links. So as soon as you turn it on, it will get displayed in there. So then the next thing we want to look at after the social links is the footer link, which is for the cookie policy. Now you don't, at the moment, you just have a privacy policy. If you want to set up a new page for cookies, you can do. And what you will do is you would first of all go into your settings, which is again here, and you would go to footer. And in footer, in my view, I can see these. You won't be able to see these because they will be blocked out. But here, this one you do have access to in case you want to add in a cookie policy. So you just create a page and then you would link to it. What I'll do is I'll log out and I'll log in as a partner. So you'll be able to see what I can see. So this is the view. So for example, in the footer, these are all grayed out, but the cookie policy page isn't grayed out so that you can do what you want it to do. So what I would suggest is under privacy policy, because you can't pay, because you can't create anything at the root level, I would just go underneath here, create a new page. I would call it cookies. And then we'll give it some metadata. And then we'll create it. And then we'll still want it displayed in the navigation. We'll create a new block. we'll do some text and we'll call this cookies. Just to make it actually look like text, we'll do that. And then we'll create that and we'll publish it. So we now will have a cookie page here, which is called cookies. And then in the site settings, we can then go to the footer. We can go and call this, you can't change the name, it's just called cookies. And then we'll go into test. We'll go into privacy policy, click cookies, do OK, publish those changes. And then when we look on test, at the bottom of the page, you'll then have a link here that says cookies. So if you want to have a specific cookie policy, and you might want to going forward, again, we're going to put out some guidance for that. What you can do in any of these situations is look at the national site for Age UK. They have got a cookie policy, they've got their terms and conditions, they've got their privacy policy. Now, we're not saying copy these because obviously your terms and conditions, your cookies, etc., will be different. But some of the cookie guidance people will tell you exactly what cookies are on your site. But if you happen to use a third party, like I've discussed in terms of Twitter or Facebook, Facebook will put down a cookie. So you'll need to be aware that if you're embedding those cookies will be on your system, but they won't be ones that we put on there. But if they are the standard ones, we'll supply those with you, and you can add them into your cookie policy. And then when you click it, it takes you to your cookie policy page, which will sit underneath your privacy policy. Now, the next one is for the WYSIWYG. And when I say WYSIWYG, what I'm talking about is that it's called What You See Is What You Get. It's the text editor that you have within the CMS. So this is what we've done in the cookies page. So when you go in, this bit here is what a WYSIWYG is. It just means, and this is what it is. It just means it shows you what you can actually see. So if I to a format like that, and then put, say, titles, and I give it a format which is, say, heading 2, then that's what it looks like, and I can publish it. And what you see there is what I will see on the is what I will see on the test page. That's what I'll see. But if you looked at the code page, then you just see code, which is not what you see is what you get. It's something different. So that doesn't really affect you because all of these things you've been able to do before, but the WYSIWYG is slightly different. So where you was before, you would have had a copy from Word. That's now gone. So what we would suggest is if you're doing text, you go in, open up a notepad, which is like this, and then any text that you say someone has written something in Word, I would copy it from Word into here, and then from here, then copy it into the back of here, because it just takes out all formatting, because otherwise you'll be stuck with formatting that you don't want, and the pages might look strange, and you'll have bits of code in there that you don't necessarily need. So that's for that. Now, also with the WYSIWYG, also some people had embedded content which they couldn't see. Some of you may be on this call actually already, so you might have been able to see your not your CQC, but there's a bit of code, and I can't remember what it's called, but it covers the guidance that you have to show that you're validated. And when you were looking at it, you couldn't see it in here, but you could see it on the website. And when you were doing the embed, you couldn't see it behind either, but it would now fix that. So if you do have that piece of code, you'll be able to see those embeds behind. And I don't know if that was working for all embeds, but for a lot of them, people couldn't sort of like, you wouldn't be able to preview an embed anyway, but when you were looking at the source code, it still wasn't there. So that's now fixed, but a lot of you might not have even noticed that was happening. And then there was an issue with the accordion. So when you're in an accordion, we've now added a new element called stop floating next element. Yeah, so you could put some text in there, but if you put say like if you put an image on this side and you put text underneath it, the image would automatically float upwards, and we wouldn't really want that. So now in here, when you put in a, so let's publish that, and then go to so now you would have an image, you would have this text flowing around. If you didn't have this much text, this download button, and say the text stopped here, the download button would then float up there if you wanted a separate section within the accordion. So now you can use end section, and it will just knock this down to the end of the page so that you can have a bit more control of the formatting. That's if you use accordions. If you don't use accordions, then don't worry about it. But within accordions, you can only use in an accordion text. You can't put extra text around an accordion. The accordion block only deals with the drop down of text. But if that's not clear, let me know. But a lot of all this guidance I've updated in the guidance for the hub, so you can have a look there. But as I say, if you're not quite sure of it, do let me know. And then the final thing we come to is forms. So I will go through forms for you. So we've changed the format of forms, but we were told that in terms of how the forms work, when you set up a form, the data comes into you. The data comes into the CMS, and then it gets stored there. Before it got stored there, and then it was emailed to you, and then when it arrived in your system, it was secure. So it was secure at the point at which it arrived at us. It was secure at the point at which it arrived with you, but when it was emailing, we couldn't be sure that it was secure. So we were told by our Chief Data Officer that we needed to change this system, and they'll be changing this all the way across Age UK. We've just done it. Then you will sometimes get emails from volunteering about guidance from them about people that want to get involved. They're going to be changing that system as well, but their systems are different, so we're changing them as we can all the way through the system. But because you're setting up your forms and you're asking for specific data off of your service users, then you need to have access to that data. So we've done yours first because there are more of you and it just needs to be done. So now what will happen is your forms will work still as standard, but this is you'll be able to see the actual form itself. So an example of this is if you go into my test site and I need to remember where it is. So I've got contact us form. So this is the contact us form that we would have, and so you can see it from the front in the EPI server. It's probably best to view it from the back, so the kind of code view. So this is how the page is made up. It's got the map, it's got some text, it's got some more text, and this green bit is the form. So what you'll need to do is just go into edit the form. You're not actually editing the form because this is the editing the form. You don't want to do any of that. But you'll need to go into here and you see on-page editing or properties and form submissions. Now you wouldn't have been able to see form submissions before. So if you click on that, you'll now see that you have access to the data that was sent to you. So you can search for dates, and you can also see what the form is finalized. So here these are finalized. So these are the forms that actually someone's clicked submit on and said, I'm happy to do this, to do the form. So anything that's ticked you can deal with and you can reply to. If it's not ticked, it means they didn't send the final data through. Now we're leaving this in there for two reasons. One is because you need to, just because we don't want to cut away data that someone then might come to you and say, well, I submitted a form, and you'll say, well, we don't have that data, because if it gets deleted after a day, you'll never know whether that form was half completed. So this way you'll know that that form was half completed, and then you'll be able to have a discussion with them based on the information that they did put in, or you'll be able to see that there was an issue, but that it wasn't finalized, and then that they might have to go in and fill that form in again in order to kind of agree that they can share their data, etc. So that's how you can fill, and you can filter by finalized as well. For example, like I've put some 2 test ones in here, so I can select those and I can delete them. And they're they're gone and I'm just left with the standard ones. So to begin with, what we're going to do is there's no limit to how long you can have the data for. So yeah, to begin with, there's no limit to the the data that's in there. So you can, from between now and January, there's no limit, or between sometime next year. We're not actually quite sure when the next release, when it goes out, will be when we set a time limit on it. So you can download every response that you've ever had. And I would suggest that you do that to begin with, just so that you know that you've got all your data. And in order to download that, you just go to here and you export as the type of file that you want. So for me, I'll just do an XLS, which is an Excel file, and it will just download it and open it. And there's all the data. Now, because it comes in a spreadsheet, instead of you having to cut and paste from your emails, you've actually got the spreadsheet all ready to go. So even if you then want to just, you set up your spreadsheet according to your forms and just cut and paste them, then that's what you will do. Otherwise, you can delete them in here if you've downloaded them, and you can just do one at a time. So if I wanted to just do one, I could just download that, and that would just do the first email if I wanted to. So that you've got fairly flexibility into it, but how you want to do that is entirely up to you. So that is how that works. But there's also, once we've done that, if we go back to all properties, there's these. So there's content, which is the content form. There's the settings, which is how you let people know. So now you can have more than one people getting this email. So I've got just set it to me, but when I edit that, the subject will be contact us. So when these forms are going out to different people, you can then change the subject and just say they'll get a standard email that just says this, you've now had a form emailed, you need to go in and find it. But if you put the subject in, at least they'll know what form it is that they're dealing with. So you could have that sent to 3 people, depending on if one is say if you've got a form that deals with volunteering or lunch clubs or something else, you can then decide that will go to everybody else and they can go in and download what they wanted to do. But you can also add another one. So if you wanted to add a new one, you would just click on the plus. There's no email to link to it, and no email template to link to it anymore. You just put in the email address and put in the subject, and then add, and it will add there. So you can have 3 people receiving this if you wanted to. So Elliot had asked a question, said, is there a way to mark which responses have been downloaded or have been actioned? No, because they're just, it's just the data. It's not running as a CRM. It's just kind of holding the data in the system. So you just need to download it and then kind of keep your records from beyond there of what's been done. As I say, at the moment, there's no limit on how long this data is in there, and I suggest you download everything. But then if we're looking back at properties, there's a retention policy, which currently you can see is there's no setting, so there's no deletion. But what we are going to do, because we were advised to do it in terms of, because we're hanging onto your data and we shouldn't be, you should be the ones looking after your own data. There'll be a 90-day custom retention period. So after 90 days, it will drop off. So if you had one come in, say on the 1st of January, that unless you specifically delete it or download it, you would then 90 days later, it would drop off and you wouldn't have it. So that's why you've got 90 days to do it. So yeah, Heather has said, although you can set the settings for each form, we only have 2 logins on the website. So this is an issue. Yes, you can have more logins, and there are 2 levels of logins. The login that you have, I mean, I wouldn't suggest giving a login to everybody in the organization, because that will be slightly unmanageable, also for you and for me. But there was 2 levels of logins. One is for editors, which is just the standard ones that you all have, which means that you can have access to this, you can publish, etc. You just can't put new items in the top navigation. The other one is an author, which means they can't publish things, but they still would have access to go in and download these forms. So you could give them author access, because it just means that they only need to go into one space specifically to download to download your data. So that's sort of the generalness about the forms. So I'm trying to see if I've got anything else to cover. So we've done the wiggles, we've done the forms. Are there any more while we're on forms? Because I think that's the kind of major bone of contention that I will allow you to ask any more questions that you want about forms. Janet says, how do you give author access? You come to me and I give author access, so I have to, this is what I'm saying, I have to actually set up all these passwords for the extra people that you want. So as long as you give me, the email address of who it is going to be, then I will set up an email, set up a login for the CMS, and I will email it through to you. So Elliot, can two or more people use the same login at the same time? I don't know if I don't know about how, if you could log in with with the same login at the same time, because it might conflict in the system. It's like having two browser windows open and doing two things on different pages, and if they're both using the same form, it might use issues. That's why we wouldn't necessarily suggest giving one email address to everybody that they can all log in with, because there might be a conflict. So that's why and also in terms of monitoring what people are doing, if you can see who's published something, who's made a change, who's deleted things, and if they've got their own specific email login, then that makes that easier, because you'll be able to see what changes they've made. So I wouldn't suggest two people using the same, well, two people using the same login is a bad idea anyway, but specifically two people using the same login at the same time, it might cause problems. Tanya, on our website, we have a volunteer application form which has about 10 questions. Now the form comes in an Excel form. Is it possible to have it as a PDF or Word doc? If not, do you know how to do this? Do you mean download it as a PDF or a Word document? Danielle. So you would only be able to download it in the format that we have supplied it. So, which is, let's go into a form submission. So here you can download it as these formats, because this is data and that's what's coming through the site. But say we did it as a so if you do it as an Excel, and it depends on how you want that information out. So if you download this format like that, then you can then you can save it as a PDF using Excel to send it to, but it really depends what you want to do with that data. So let's go to and then save. So that will save, you can go into Excel and you can save it as a PDF if you want to, and this is a PDF. It just depends what use that is to you. Does that answer your question? Okay, so Heather, just to clarify, the volunteer forms in the same place as the contact forms now. No, all the forms will be where you have them on your site. So when we gave you a template, it was just a template to start you off. So we would only have given you one form, which was a contact us form. So if you created new ones, they are your site. So wherever you put that data is wherever you put it. So I can't necessarily answer those questions specifically, because there are 140 sites and everyone's data might be in a different place. So all I would suggest is, for example, on here, I know that on the test site, go to About Us, Contact Us, and on Contact Us, there is a form at the bottom of that page. So the chances are, therefore, that in the CMS, where I would go then into About Us, it would be where the contact form would be, and that's where it would live. But that's if you built the form on the page. But because of the way the CMS works, you can build a form on a page, or you can build a form in a global block, and then you can drag it in. So depending on where you built it, it will depend on where you get it from. So, and for each site, that's going to be different. I mean, the guidance for all of this is, if you go to the hub, and if you go to, so for example, the release, all the release notes are in the regular place. So I just put on what happened in the release and where things were. then all of the standard guidance is here, and I've integrated that with with the other standard guidance, like the creating blocks, creating forms, etc. So yeah, that's and the forms guidance again. If you go to the form guidance and download it, I've updated it in terms of how you can access your data. So, but as I say, if you need anything, just give me an email and we can take it from there. Otherwise, thank you very much.